The best army in the world was destroyed in a single day by the very empire that created it. For 400 years, they protected the Sultan. They ate from the same pot. They slept under his banner. And on June 15, 1826, that same Sultan burned them alive in their own barracks. This wasn't a foreign enemy. This wasn't a lost war. This was the Ottoman Empire destroying its own military elite with its own artillery in the heart of Istanbul. They were known as the Janissaries. They were born to protect the Sultan. They ended up killing sultans. And what happened that day in 1826 is still called, without irony, the Auspicious Incident. This is the true story of how an empire built its own deadliest weapon and how that same weapon nearly destroyed it from within. To understand why a sultan burned his own army, we have to go back almost 500 years. In the late 14th century, the Ottoman Empire was just expanding across Anatolia and the Balkans. Sultan Murad I had a problem. His army depended on Turkish nobles with their own loyalties, their own lands, their own ambitions. A strong sultan needed soldiers who owed nothing to anyone but him. The solution was the devshirme, a system of forced recruitment of Christian children, mostly from the Balkans, Serbia, Albania, Greece, Bosnia. Every few years, Ottoman officials would travel through Christian villages and select the strongest, most promising boys. They were torn from their families. Most would never see them again. They were converted to Islam, taught Turkish. They spent years training in military discipline, religion, and absolute loyalty to one person, the Sultan. They had no surname, no land, no family outside the core. The Sultan was, literally, the only family they were allowed to have. That total isolation was the genius of the system. A janissary couldn't inherit land, couldn't freely marry for centuries of the core's existence. He had no tribal or aristocratic loyalty competing with his loyalty to the Sultan. He was, in theory, the perfect soldier, loyal only to the throne, with no other possible ambition. The process began in childhood. Devshirme recruits between 8 and 14 years old were first sent to live with rural Turkish families. There they learned the language, the customs, and Islam before entering the palace schools. The most promising went through the Enderun, the palace's inner school, where they could rise to become viziers. The rest became infantry soldiers. Their new home was literally called the hearth, Yeniçeri Ocağı. And that word hearth wasn't decorative. Janissaries ate from a single sacred pot, the kazan, which they carried into battle like a standard. Swearing loyalty over that pot meant swearing loyalty to the entire corps. Even their military ranks came from the kitchen. The commander of each company was called çorbacı, the soup man. They were also tied to a mystical religious order, the Bektashi, which held the fire of the hearth and the shared pot sacred. And for almost 2 centuries, all of this worked exactly as planned. The Janissaries became the most disciplined infantry in Europe and Asia. They were decisive in the conquest of Constantinople in 1453 under Sultan Mehmed II. They were the spearhead at the Battle of Mohacs in 1526 and at both sieges of Vienna in 1529 and 1683. For generations, they were the reason the Ottoman Empire never stopped growing. But there's a detail almost no summary of this story mentions. The same isolation that made them loyal at first, over time, produced the opposite effect. Because a corps of soldiers with no family, no property, and no future outside the army, sooner or later has only one way to secure its own future: take the power it protects. The first warning came in 1622. Sultan Osman II was just 18, and he had an idea the Janissaries hated. After a military defeat, he decided the Janissary Corps had become undisciplined and corrupt. He banned them from the coffee houses they frequented in Istanbul, their favorite meeting spot. Then he announced a religious pilgrimage to Mecca. In reality, he planned to recruit a new army in Egypt to replace them. The Janissaries found out. On May 19, 1622, they deposed him. Weeks later, they strangled him in the Seven Towers prison. He was the first Ottoman Sultan assassinated by the very corps that had sworn to protect him. He wouldn't be the last. Over the following 2 centuries, the pattern repeated itself again and again. Every time a sultan tried to modernize the army, cut Janissary privileges, or simply pay them less, the corps responded the same way. Riots in the streets of Istanbul, barracks turned into centers of political power. A grim ritual became custom. Whenever the Janissaries revolted, they overturned their huge soup cauldrons in the square. An overturned cauldron meant one thing: the Sultan was in danger. And here's the number that explains everything that came next. In the 14th century, the Janissary corps had barely 2,000 men. Under Mahmud II, the conqueror of Constantinople, they were already 10,000. By 1574, 13,600. By the early 18th century, 53,000. And by 1826, the official register listed 135,000 Janissaries. But that growth hit a problem. Starting in the 17th century, the strict devshirme recruitment loosened. Any civilian with enough money could buy his way onto the Janissary register without training a single day. The social status and tax privileges the uniform granted were worth more than the military discipline it demanded. By the 18th century, the Janissaries were no longer just an army. They were merchants, shop owners, moneylenders, with businesses across the city. Most didn't even train for war anymore. They had inherited the title, not the discipline. The corps that once conquered Constantinople with 10,000 elite men had swollen into what many Ottoman historians consider the main obstacle to reforming the empire. Sultan Selim III understood this better than anyone. In 1794, he created the Nizam-e-Jadid, a new army trained in modern European tactics. He didn't try to abolish the Janissaries outright. He tried to build an alternative alongside them. The Janissaries saw it for what it was, the beginning of the end of their military monopoly. In May 1807, they revolted. They deposed Selim III and locked him in the palace. In his place, they put his cousin on the throne, Mustafa IV. A year later, a general loyal to Selim named Alamdar Mustafa Pasha marched on Istanbul with 15,000 men to restore him to the throne. When Mustafa IV learned the rescue army was already entering the city, he gave an urgent order. On the night of July 28, 1808, a group of palace men burst into Selim III's room. The deposed sultan, armed with nothing but the reed flute he was playing at that moment, tried to defend himself with it. They strangled him. When Alamdar Mustafa Pasha arrived minutes too late and found the body, he could no longer restore Selim. Instead, he crowned another prince of the dynasty, Mahmud II. 3 sultans deposed, 2 of them assassinated. An empire that could no longer reform its own army without risking the life of the man on the throne. The new sultan had watched his cousin die for trying, and still he decided to try again. But what Mahmud II did with that lesson, no one has told you yet. He took the throne in 1808 at 23 amid the wreckage of 2 coups. His first year as sultan began with yet another Janissary riot that nearly cost him the throne too. He had seen up close what happened to sultans who defied the Janissaries without a plan. Mahmud II didn't make the same mistake as Selim III. He didn't announce a military reform and wait to see what happened. He spent almost 2 decades building alliances, quietly weakening the most powerful Janissary leaders and waiting for the exact right moment. That moment came in June 1826. On June 15th, Mahmud II announced the creation of a new European-style military force, drawn partly from the Janissaries' own ranks. It was a calculated provocation, and it worked exactly as he expected. The Janissaries overturned their cauldrons in the square, as they had done for centuries. They rioted in the streets of Istanbul, convinced they would repeat the same old story. But this time, the Sultan wasn't caught off guard.
Mahmud II did something no previous Sultan had dared to do against them. He brought out the sacred banner of the Prophet, kept as a relic in the palace, and raised it at the Sultanate Mosque. For any devout Muslim in Istanbul, gathering under that banner to defend it was almost a religious duty. Thousands of civilians and merchants who had resented Janissary privileges for years armed themselves and joined the Sultan's army. He ordered the Janissaries back to their barracks. They refused. They trusted the same power that had worked for them for 400 years. This time, they weren't facing just the Sultan. They were facing a modern army and their own city. The Sultan's army surrounded the Janissary barracks and opened fire with artillery at point-blank range. The barracks burned, with thousands of men still inside. An estimated 4,000 to 10,000 Janissaries died that single day between the fire and the street fighting. The survivors were hunted down for months. Many were beheaded at a fortress in Thessaloniki that has been known ever since as the Blood Tower. Mahmud II himself ordered that this massacre be called Vaka-i Hayriya, the Auspicious Incident. The name wasn't unintentional irony. It was a political statement. The Sultan wanted his empire to understand that destroying the Janissaries wasn't a tragedy, it was a liberation. He didn't stop there. The Bektashi order, the religious brotherhood that had blessed the Janissaries for centuries, was banned. Its lodges were closed or handed over to other orders, its leaders exiled or executed. Mahmud II didn't just destroy an army, he erased the faith that had given it spiritual meaning for generations. In just a few hours on a single June day, the oldest and most feared military corps in the Ottoman Empire ceased to exist. 400 years of history, 3 sultans deposed, 2 of them murdered, countless riots. It all ended with artillery aimed at the very barracks the empire had built for them. The Ottoman Empire survived almost 100 more years after the Auspicious Incident, but it never again had an army as feared as the one it had just destroyed with its own hands. Mahmud II's new European-style army came too late to reverse a decline that had already been building for generations. The Janissaries didn't fall to a foreign enemy. They fell because the same absolute loyalty that made them invincible eventually became a threat no sultan could tolerate. A weapon designed to owe loyalty to nothing but the throne ended up deciding who sat on it. Think about what that means. A system built over 400 years to guarantee absolute loyalty ended up becoming the greatest threat to that same loyalty, not through foreign betrayal, not through military weakness, through the simple passage of time acting on unchecked power. 400 years ago, a sultan created them so no one could overthrow him. 400 years later, another sultan had to burn them alive just to stay on that same throne. The best army in the world didn't fall from weakness, it fell from having become itself too powerful for the empire that created it.